My name is Asa Cusick, and my literature review covers esophagectomies as a treatment for esophageal cancer. And in my literature review, I attempt to compare and contrast the different types of surgeries and see which is most effective and find ways to improve the surgeries themselves. So to start off, esophageal cancer is a cancer of the esophagus that is usually diagnosed in the late stages, and this is because the symptoms aren't very prominent in the early stages. They're not very noticeable to the patient, him or herself. So by the time of diagnosis, the cancer is usually spread throughout the esophagus and possibly into the surrounding regions. So this leaves esophagectomies, which is the removal of part or most of the esophagus, as a common form of treatment. And that's the beginning of what I argue in my literature review. I argue that esophagectomies are a common form of treatment, but they need to be researched in order to increase how well they treat the cancer. So the first theme that I discuss is the first type of esophagectomy, the open esophagectomy. There are 3 different kinds of open esophagectomies, but all of them involve large incisions to the thorax, abdomen, and or neck of the patient. And despite these large incisions to the patient, there's a surprisingly high survival rate. There's about a 90% survival rate in the short term, and that's just a recovery from the surgery itself. I expected that to be a little bit lower due to how much recovery needs to be done in terms of repairing the person's body. However, the long-term survival rate is not very favorable. It's only about 25 to 35% for the open esophagectomies. However, one type of open esophagectomy, the en-bloc esophagectomy, has a slightly higher survival rate, which can range to 40%, but that's still not a significant amount. The second theme that I discuss is the minimally invasive esophagectomy, and this esophagectomy is robotically assisted and involves very small incisions to the patient, and for this reason I thought that the survival rate would be almost 100%. However, it was about the same as the open esophagectomy. In terms of recovering from the surgery, it's about 90% as well. And the long-term survival rate isn't that much different either. It's about 40%, which is slightly better than most of the open esophagectomies, but still, it's not an amazing form of treatment for the cancer. The third theme that I go over is the similarities and differences between these cancers. So the common thread between all of these surgeries seems to be that there's the risk of anastomostic leakage to occur after the surgery itself. And I thought this is really interesting because no matter how fancy it gets with the newest technology and robotically assisted surgeries, there seems to be this same problem that runs through. So that's definitely something that should be researched in the future to be able to be prevented. And in terms of differences, the only difference that I saw with these esophagectomies was that the minimally invasive esophagectomy was less painful. And it makes sense because there are fewer and smaller incisions. However, I thought that there would be more beneficial aspects to the minimally invasive esophagectomy. So overall, I found that it is a common form of treatment, and there are improvements that need to be made. The main improvement is with anastomostic leakage in all of them. However, specifically, open esophagectomies need to improve their long-term survival rate, as that's pretty low. And the minimally invasive should see close to 100%. That needs to be improved in the short term, and that also needs to improve the long-term survival rate.